Hello everyone, welcome to Math Pals. You're watching Math with Anila. Today, let's study about an important topic in math, that is matrices. You know what is a matrix? A matrix is a rectangular arrangement of numbers arranged in rows and columns. Let's see some of the examples. This is matrix 5, 1 and matrix 2, 4, 7, 8 and matrix 8, 9, 7, etc. These are the examples of matrices. Now, let's consider what is the order of a matrix. The order of a matrix is the number of rows into number of columns in it. So, what do you mean by the rows and columns? Consider matrix 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here, the horizontal line, this is called the row. And this is the first row. This is the second row, R2. The horizontal line is the row and the vertical lines are called the columns. And here the first one is the first column. This is represented as C1, column 1, and this is column 2 and this is column 3, C3. This is the number of rows and these are the number of columns. Now in this particular matrix we can see that there are 2 rows and 3 columns. I have told you the order of a matrix is the number of rows into number of columns. If a matrix has m number of rows and n number of columns, then we can say that the order of that particular matrix is m by n. We will write it as m cross n and it is read as m by n. That is the order of the matrix. So for this special case, what we can say, what's the order of this matrix? That is 2 by 3 because this has 2 rows and 3 columns. The order of this particular matrix is 2 by 3. And usually we represent the matrix by using the capital letters. So we can use capital letter A, B, C, etc. to represent a matrix. And here if this matrix is matrix A, we can say that the matrix is A with the order 2 by 3. A 2 by 3. This is how we represent a matrix. Next, the elements of a matrix. Each number or entity in a matrix is called its element. And see, look at the matrix. This is 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a matrix and you know this has 2 rows. This is the row 1 and this is the row 2 and 2 columns, C1 and C2. And here how many elements this particular matrix will have? To find out the total number of elements in a matrix, you need to multiply the number of rows into number of columns. And here how many rows we have? We have 2 rows, number of rows are 2 and number of columns are 2. So total elements of this particular matrix is 4. Look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 elements in that particular matrix. If we represent this matrix as matrix A, we can write it as A 2 by 2 since it has 2 rows and 2 columns. And when you are multiplying the number of rows into number of columns, we get the total number of elements in it. Next is the types of matrices. We can see that there are so many types of matrices here. They are row matrix, column matrix, square matrix, rectangular matrix, zero or null matrix, diagonal matrix, and unit or identity matrix. Let's consider an example. So matrix A is equal to, you can write AB. This, what kind of a matrix is this? Can you tell me how many rows it has? It has only 1 row. This is only 1 row. How many columns it has? It has 2 columns. It has 2 columns. Now, you can say that there is only 1 row here. This is known as a row matrix. If a matrix has only 1 row, then it is a row matrix. In the same way, if you consider another matrix B, 1, 2, 3. Here if you see, there are 3 rows, R1, R2 and R3. And there is a single column here. So this is an example of a column matrix. If a matrix has only a single column, then it is a column matrix. Now let's see the square matrix. What's a square matrix? Just by the name itself we can understand a square. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is an example of a square matrix. What can you say from that? See, there are two rows, R1 and R2, and two columns here, C1 and C2. That means this has equal number of rows and columns. Therefore, it is an example of a square matrix. A square matrix has equal number of rows and columns. Consider these two examples. This is matrix A, matrix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is matrix B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what can you see from this? In the case of a square matrix, we have seen that has equal number of rows as well as the columns. But in this case, you can see that there are 2 rows and 3 columns. That means the number of rows and columns are different. And if you see this next example also the same way, here we have 3 rows and 2 columns, and here also the number of rows as well as the columns are different. So this is an example of a rectangular matrix. What's a rectangular matrix? A rectangular matrix is a matrix where the number of rows and the columns are different. Consider the matrix X, 0, 0, 0, 0. So what can you see from this? All the elements are 0. So this is an example of a zero matrix. It's also known as a null matrix. What's a zero matrix? A zero matrix is a matrix where each element of the matrix is equal to 0. Next is the diagonal matrix. A diagonal matrix is a square matrix with all the elements 0 except the elements on the principal diagonal or the leading diagonal. So what is the principal diagonal? If you draw a line from the left top to the right bottom, what you get, that is only the principal diagonal. And here if you can see that all these elements are not equal to 0. Apart from that, all other elements are 0. So this is a diagonal matrix, and the special condition is that it should be a square matrix that we have seen earlier. What's a square matrix? Which has equal number of rows as well as the columns. So this has 3 columns as well as the 3 rows. So this is an example of a diagonal matrix. Next is a unit matrix or the identity matrix. This is the unit matrix. A unit matrix is a diagonal matrix in which the principal diagonal elements are equal to unity, that is 1. So here if you see this is an example of a diagonal matrix. What's a diagonal matrix? A diagonal matrix is a square matrix. That means it should have equal number of rows and columns. And here also if you see this particular matrix has 3 rows and 3 columns, and the leading diagonal elements are equal to 1. That is, it is unity. So this is a unit matrix or an identity matrix. What's a unit matrix? A unit matrix is a matrix. It's a diagonal matrix with the principal diagonal elements are equal to 1. So this was the basic introduction about the matrices, and in this class you have seen about the definition of a matrix, order of a matrix, element of a matrix, and the types of matrices. In the types of matrices you have seen row matrix, column matrix, square matrix, rectangular matrix, zero or null matrix, diagonal matrix, and the unity matrix. So we'll continue with this chapter in the next class. Thank you.